Hi everybody, my name is Ryan T. Husk.
Is it? My name is Kip Bowen, and welcome to the Creation Entertainment Podcast. We've got a great show for you today.
We sure do, and I'll tell you all about it. We start off today with part 2 of the Dean Devlin interview, covering his later career, in which he was producing shows like The Librarians and Leverage.
And on the Pop Culture Cinema Squad, Adam and I get into the Amazon Prime series, The Expanse, an excellent series for those hardcore sci-fi fans. Plus, in the Creation Looks Back segment, Adam and Gary talk about their valued partnership with William Shatner, who helped them in their early days of Star Trek conventions.
And finally, we've got some more business advice from Creation co-CEO Gary Berman. All this and more on the Creation Entertainment Podcast.
It's Adam Nalen, and in part 2 of my exclusive interview with creator, director, producer, and writer extraordinaire Dean Devlin, we talk about a string of successful TV series including Leverage, The Librarians, The Ark, and Almost Paradise, and some of his go-to people including director Jonathan Frakes and Uber actor Christian Kane. Also at the time of this airing, TNT has announced the premiere of Librarians, The Next Chapter, which will premiere on May 25th, 2025. Also, the third season of Leverage Redemption has just dropped recently on April 17th on Amazon Prime Video. And finally, season 3 of Sci-Fi's The Ark has been greenlit, yay, and should drop sometime in 2026. Dean shows no sign of slowing down and continues to thrill fans around the world with an explosion of wonderful content from his Electric Entertainment banner. I hope you enjoyed this second part of my sit-down with the incredibly talented Dean Devlin. Let's talk about Electric Entertainment. How did the company come about? We had a chance to work with your producing partner, Rachel Olshan Wilson. We love Rachel. She's fantastic, fabulous, and an equally huge creative force that you have with her. How did Electric first come about?
Well, when Roland Emmerich and I ended our partnership, I wanted to start a new company. And at that time, Roland really didn't want to run a company anymore. He just wanted to be a director. Yeah. So he very graciously allowed me to take a lot of the company with me, including the people who were working in that. Rachel was one of them, Mark Roskin, Peter Winther. There was a bunch of people there that all came with me to start a new company.
Forgive me for interjecting. Centropolis, whose entity was that?
Well, it was Roland's company, and then he brought me in, and I ended up being a partner in it. But when I left Centropolis with him, and I went to start a new company.
Got it.
And in that time, in that year, is when my parents died. And my father's giant passion in life was electric cars. And he had the very first EV1 and made me get like the 9th EV1. And so I thought, in honor of my father, who had just passed, who was a movie producer who had inspired me, I named the company Electric Entertainment.
That's awesome. And then how did you meet Rachel?
So Rachel started with me at Centropolis as my assistant. And she just worked her way up over the years. And Mark Roskin had started as a PA on Universal Soldier, and he worked his way up to being the head of development for us. And then when I started Electric, I brought them both in. I said, guys, partner with me on this.
Amazing. It's such an incredible think tank of creatives that you've surrounded yourself with. I mean, it blows my mind. Leverage. What a show. What an incredible show. Much less Leverage Redemption. The original Leverage, I mean, it's lightning in a bottle. Who developed the pitch for it, and how did the beginning of it getting made?
Well, I had been making a series of movies for TNT called The Librarian, and
which we'll talk about. And we love those movies, by the way, as well as the series.
Well, right around the time we were going to the upfronts to promote the third movie, Michael Wright, who was the head of TNT at the time, said to me, "When the hell am I going to get a TV series out of you?" And I said, "Well, what do you think about a show of a group of high-tech thieves who function as modern-day Robin Hoods?" And he goes, "Sold." And it was that simple. So I called up John Rogers, who I had worked with on developing a feature script, and I said, do you want to do a Conan High show? And he said, that's so weird you said that, because Christiane and I this morning were just pitching ideas on a Conan High show. Yeah. And I said, well, let's get together and let's do this. And the script they wrote was so great that I said, you know what? This is going to be my directorial debut. And that was the first thing I ever directed, because I loved that script so much I wasn't going to let anyone else have it.
The cast is incredible. Each of them has such a great role, and I don't want to kind of get too deep in this because we'll never get through it. But you had 6 seasons of the original show.
5 seasons, 77 episodes.
Yeah, it was incredible. And of course, John and Chris, who I guess were co-showrunners, much less your whole fleet of your whole writing staff, but especially John and Chris are so incredible. Yeah. And they're so talented. And so there was this recurring riff about a Steranko security system in the series. And when we did okay, I'm like the world's #1 Jim Steranko fan. I think we talked about this. Obviously, either John or Chris are huge Steranko fans. But anyway, I brought this. I was going to wear it, but I decided it's too much already. But we did this for the convention. Don't blur on me, baby. Come on. Blurring. It doesn't want to show it. Oh, there it is.
There you go.
Okay. Steranko security system. There's always Steranko security systems that the team is trying to penetrate.
That's right.
That's a great reference in there. And obviously the show's DNA got kind of partly transposed after it ended into the new series. And so when the original Leverage ended, did you just know, even maybe before it ended, that you were going to move on to Redemption?
Well, I loved doing Leverage so much that as far as I was concerned, I was not going to rest until I got to revive it. And I mean, literally the very next year, I went to every single network and tried to pitch them on taking on Leverage.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until Amazon created, at the time, it was IMDb TV, that I thought, okay, that's the perfect home for this. And I went and I pitched it to them and they got it. They couldn't have been more supportive and better partners. And they allowed us to come up with a new version of the show. And, you know, the 3rd season is about to debut in a couple of weeks. And I could not be more proud of that show.
I mean, we can't wait for it. We've just been waiting on bated breath. So what is the release date now? We know what it is?
April 17th.
April 17th. I actually already have it on my phone, but okay. Okay, so Noah Wyle. I mean, we're going to talk about the librarians, but bringing him to Redemption just seems like such a great move. How did that all come about?
Well, Noah and I first worked together in 2005 or 2004 on the first Librarian movie. And I didn't know him before that. And I had respected him as a very intense, dramatic actor. I thought the work he did on ER was incredible, but I had no clue how great he was at comedy.
Yeah.
And when I got to work with him on Librarian, I was just blown away. I mean, here he was going toe to toe with Jane Curtin and Bob Newhart and holding his own and surpassing in many ways. I just fell in love with working with him, and he's an egoless actor. He's incredibly intelligent. He's a filmmaker. He's a writer. He's a director. So when you work with him, you really get a partner, and I just loved it. So when we had the chance to reboot or reinvent Leverage, he was the first call, and I said, "Do you want to come and do this crazy thing with me?" And he was a little resistant at first because, he hadn't been there from the beginning and he didn't know how he'd fit in. And he, really, really as a favor to me, he came on board. And from the very first table read, it was so apparent that he was just going to slide in seamlessly. And it was like magic from the first day. It was like he'd always been on the show.
He fit in so great. But let's just kind of backtrack to Librarians. Of course, the 3 films were amazing, and then they begat the TV series.
That's right.
And I love the cast of the TV series. I'm a huge Rebecca Romaine fan, so I mean, I just thought that she was such a strong female lead for that show.
Oh yeah.
But all of them, John and Lindy, and of course we have to talk about your acting muse, Christian Kane. We haven't even gotten to Christian yet, but again, you have a magic for putting together great ensembles. Are you part of that casting process? That's a Gene Roddenberry trick, really finding the alchemy of a great ensemble. How do you make that happen?
Well, John Rogers says that that's my superpower. And I don't know, maybe it's because I started as an actor, but casting has always been the thing I think I'm best at. But you and I started this conversation talking about good experiences. I don't just cast for who's going to be great in front of the camera. I try to cast for who's going to be great behind the scenes as well.
Yes,
and that's why the sets are so so well loved. Rebecca, Lindy, John Kim, Noah Wiley, and Christian Kane.
Yeah.
You can't have more fun on set.
Yeah.
These are such lovely people with such a great attitude, egoless, and it just makes the whole experience so much better. And then that kind of camaraderie off camera feeds into the magic that you see on camera, because they're not just good actors working together. They actually care about each other, and they support each other.
Librarians has this amazing balance between drama and humor that's so wonderful about it. I mean, there's tons of urgency and dramatic energy, but at the same time, that incredible sort of fun aspect to the show. Librarians is it's a fun show, and it's so enjoyable to watch it. The concept of the library itself, where'd that come from? I love the library. I love it.
So the original movie was written by a man named David Titcher, and he had come to my office and pitched a movie, which I kind of liked but didn't love. And I said, let me think about it. And then the next day, I repitched back to him The Librarian. And he goes, yeah, I'll write that. And so that's really where it came out of, was that first pitch meeting. And the first movie kind of set up this world, and we had so much fun with it. And it was a shocking success. It was the highest rated movie on television that year. Not highest rated movie for television, highest rated movie period on television that year.
Yeah, yeah.
And so then they asked for a sequel, and we did a sequel, and then that one was the highest rated. And then they asked for a third one, and that was the highest rated. So, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find 3 television movies made over 20 years ago that are still selling today. It's really remarkable.
I mean, it's amazing. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention a couple of guys. First of all, I love John Larroquette.
Oh, yeah.
And I just thought that, Jenkins was a great character, and that he took on sort of that paternal quality to the team that was so great.
Well, I have to say, I knew his work, but I didn't know John Larroquette personally.
Yeah.
And it was actually Michael Wright's idea at TNT to cast him. And I thought, well, here's a 5-time Emmy-winning actor. I mean, he's great. I said, but I didn't know him. And then my wife said, oh, I did a movie of the week with him a couple of years ago. I said, what was it like? She said, he's the nicest guy I ever worked with. I went, done. We're hiring him. That's it. That's all I needed to hear. I know how talented he was, but I needed to know how great he was. And sure enough, I mean, you couldn't have a better guy on set.
Okay, so speaking of 800-pound gorillas, we got to talk about Christian Kane. He's kind of like not quite a James Bond, but he's sort of the super action hero, multifunction, multi-purpose, almost like a kind of a Kurt Russell of his generation. Just talk about Christian Kane. I mean, the guy is so incredible.
Well, we've now done 5 TV series together, so I think it's safe to say that I think he's pretty talented.
Yeah.
And he's a great guy, and he's been a good friend. And he's a guy who's had enormous success, and yet he will do anything to help promote a show. He'll go anywhere. He'll shake anyone's hand. He'll sign any autograph. Yeah. He still to this day appreciates his success. And you don't see that a lot. Sometimes when people get really successful, there's a weird, almost resentment about the fame they have. And Christian has always cared about his fans. He's always cared about community. And so I've just had the best experience working with him. I've now done several shows with him, and I love what he brings to the table. And and I'm just really proud of the way he carries himself.
I mean, he's one of your super weapons. So, librarians begat the librarians, the next chapter.
Yes.
So, tell me a little bit about the genesis of that show.
Well, I was approached originally by CW because they had just lost all of their DC properties. And so they were looking for a show that could, if in success, branch off into other shows so they could get a replacement in a way for the DC
Right.
universe.
Like a whole
And
universe of IP.
that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
They didn't have the kind of budget that would allow us to reboot the original show. So I came up with what I thought could be a fun spin-off within the world of the librarians and could be done at the budget that they could afford. And they loved it. They loved the idea. And my secret hope was, all right, well, I'll sneak in some of the original librarians into some episodes, and in great success, maybe that will justify also doing a reboot of the original show. Well, we ended up getting this amazing cast. Once again, Christian Kane came in and did a couple episodes to help us make the transition. And the show came out so much better than I had hoped. It was so much bigger than the original show, even though we had a much, much smaller budget. And all of a sudden, I got a phone call from TNT, and it was Sam Linsky, who'd been there from the very beginning with Michael Wright. And Sam said, "Is there any way that you think you could move the show off of CW and over to TNT?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I don't know. Let me see what I could do." And it was a lot of gymnastics. But I have to say, at the end of the day, the people at Nexstar and the people at CW really turned out to be terrific, and they allowed us to move the show. And so to get to bring librarians back to where it was born 20 years ago, it's an incredible gift.
And in all fairness, Nexstar's purchase of CW was transforming that network anyway, and getting the show back to TNT actually, I think, was a really great move.
It feels right. It feels like we're back home.
Yeah. So it was a great move. I like the narrative spine of Next Chapter with your time traveling, character Chamberlain. It's a kind of a great spine to drive the narrative. So that's a great invention right there.
Well, you were mentioning the Electricon, and it was so interesting because before we did our panel on the new librarians, I was getting stopped by a lot of fans who were crossing their arms across their chest saying, "Well, I don't want new librarians. I like the old librarians, and I don't think I want to watch this new one." And then we did the panel and we showed the first 10 minutes of the pilot, and it got a standing ovation. And all those people who'd been skeptical said, "All right, I'm in.
Yeah.
I love this. This is great."
It's awesome.
And it was such a great moment, and especially for the new cast, because the old cast was there for their panel and they kind of like handed it off to the new cast. And that was also an incredibly generous bit from the original cast, and accepting, and for the fans to accept it was just the highlight of my life.
And I think honestly, it's a validation that we already knew, but because it's a great show. There's not enough time in this interview to cover every freaking show that you've done, but I do want to talk about Almost Paradise. I love that show. Been 2 seasons so far. I'm praying we have another season coming.
We don't have it yet, but I'm still out there. I'm throwing elbows. So
I love that show. A lot of people actually a lot of people are not aware of the show.
Well, the original season was on WGN, and just before we debuted, they decided to change the network into an all news network. So the show was just kind of dumped out there. And then when that season was over, I was able to move it to Amazon, and Amazon was shocked at how well these reruns played on Amazon. They were kind of blown away at the numbers, and they said, "We'll pay for another season." We did another season, and that did spectacularly well. But unfortunately, right after we did that, they killed Amazon Freevee, which is where we were on. And we'd been the
Right,
number.
right. Yeah. So a lot of people just haven't seen it, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
It's a great series. Now, the decision to take production to the Philippines, does that have anything to do with your own Filipino heritage or?
Yes, but I have to say it was actually my wife's idea because I originally had written it for Hawaii while my wife and I were on our honeymoon. I was watching local news and it gave me this idea and I wrote out this concept and then I developed a script with Gary Rosen. But it just sat on the shelf forever because I don't know, Hawaii is expensive to shoot. There were other shows in Hawaii.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was literally years later when my wife said, "Why is this Hawaii? Why isn't it the Philippines? You're Filipino."
Oh,
And I was like,
and
boom.
nobody's done the Philippines. It's so great. It's so
Yeah.
fresh. It's fresh.
It's the only Western scripted television series to ever be shot in the Philippines.
Fantastic, and it's a great
Yeah.
ensemble. Of course, once again, bringing back the great Christian Kane, who's so great in that role.
It might be my favorite role he ever played, to be honest with you.
It's so amazing, and you film it out there, and then you bring in some amazing people. I do want to mention Art Acuna, who I think is so talented, and Samantha
Yeah.
Rochelle, sort of
Incredible.
his cohorts. You know, a special show, and just on a personal note, I'm pulling for the thing. You know, so
Thank you.
fingers crossed that it's going to go to another season. I just kind of wanted to, before we end this, just get onto Arc because I'm, as a sci-fi fiend, Arc is a special show to me. I love that show. But first, you film in what country?
Serbia.
It's Serbia, and of course, a lot of them, much of the cast and the crew are Serbian.
That's right.
So, how does something like that come about? Notwithstanding that they have an amazing community of creatives there, but how does production in Serbia come about?
Well, I we originally did a show there called The Outpost, and we were so pleased with how great the production ran and how great the local talent was.
Right.
That later, then I did a feature film there called The Deal, and again, we had a fantastic experience. So when Sci-Fi Channel picked up the Arc, we knew that we were going to have a very, very limited budget, but my ambitions for the show were grand. So the question was, how do you put a grand vision with very little money? And the answer came up Serbia. So we brought it out there and had an incredible experience with season 1. Season 2, we decided to top ourselves, and I really think in every level we did. And now we're about to start shooting season 3, and hopefully we all don't die making this season because the ambitions are through the roof. But like I said, we've got the right people with the right attitude, and I think we'll pull it off.
And again, you've struggled with your ensemble, who are so great. People, like Christy and Reese, who has been a player on some of your different shows.
That's right.
And Richard Fleischman. I mean, they're incredible. So this is a Jonathan Glassner show too, right?
That's right. That's right.
And I can't help but notice that his daughter has an incredible role on the show.
Well, it's so interesting because the role was meant to only be like 1 or 2 episodes.
Oh no, she's way too good for that.
I loved the character so much. I came and I said, John, we're not killing Kelly. we're not killing this character.
Yeah.
And then it just kept growing and growing. And now she's one of my favorite characters on the show.
Yeah, she's awesome. And we're very excited about season 3. Do we have any idea when it's going to drop or?
I don't know where they're going to air it, but we start shooting it in a few weeks. So.
Oh, so you're just about to go into production on season 3. Yeah. Very exciting. Well, I hope through your ever-present website that fans will be able to get updates on it as it's in development.
Thank you.
Yeah. Before I get your parting thoughts, just any other new projects on the horizon that you wanted to speak about at this time?
Well, we're in the middle of shooting season 2 of the new Librarians. Librarians, the next chapter.
Next chapter.
And it's just, again, it's amazing to get a season 2 pickup before season 1 has even aired. Like I said, on April 17th, Leverage Redemption season 3 starts airing, and very soon after that, the new Librarians are going to drop. So it's going to be a fun summer.
And then before we know it, Arc season 3.
That's right.
Will you ever find time to do another movie again, or?
Well, we actually, you know what? We have a movie. It's called One Big Happy Family, and it's been playing to standing ovations at the Jewish film festivals around the United States. And we are planning on a theatrical release at the end of this year through AMC theaters, and we're really, really excited about it.
We'll be looking for that. Any parting thoughts on the legacy that you've left us? You've left us decades of amazing creative content. We're so grateful for it. And I mean, how does it feel to just kind of put good creative work out there into the world?
Well, I won't take too much time on it, but I'll just say, a few years ago we started our own channel and our own app called Electric Now, and we've been able to aggregate our fans from the different shows all into one place, and to marry these fans together into a single place where they can see not all of the stuff we've made, but a great deal of the stuff that we've made is on the app and it's on the live channel. And we have original shows coming out this year that we're making just for the channel.
Great.
And so we're real excited about where that's going. And sometimes I feel like I'm Howard Hughes in his screening room watching all of his movies over and over again because I keep turning on our own channel. But I guess that's the streaming version.
And it's not only that you've put all that creative work out there, it's that you get to constantly collaborate with so many amazing creatives. For me, as a musician, working alone is really not that when you're working with an ensemble of creatives, that's what the creative life is all about.
Jean-Paul Sartre said, bliss is proximity to creation. And I absolutely believe that.
A wonderful way to end it. You've been very generous with your time, Dean. Thank you so much.
You bet.
And
good to see you.
Well, good to see you. And we're all looking forward to your projects in the future. Everybody keep watching and go to Electric Now. You can get all the skinny.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thanks again, buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, we're back again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Adam Malin, joined as always by my illustrious colleague, Miss Kit Bowen. Kit,
Hi.
we're back again.
We're back again.
It's great to be in the office.
Yes. Talking about a show we both really, really, really loved.
Oh my God. I think The Expanse is one of the great sci-fi TV series. We've loved it. We loved it over the 6 seasons that it was on the air. I guess at some point, moved over to Amazon and was actually
it started on Sci-Fi, I believe, and then it moved over to Amazon. So you can actually watch all of the seasons, there are 6 of them, on Amazon Prime.
Funded by Jeff Bezos. Thank you, Jeff. You are obviously a sci-fi visionary.
Yeah. I when I describe this show to people, I say, look, you got to be a hardcore sci-fi fan. I mean, you thought Trek was, complicated and lots of different moving parts and whatnot. Expanse outdoes Star Trek, I think, in that regard, don't you?
It's very, very deep, and we will do our best to navigate this so-called academic discussion on The Expanse. We just love the show, and there's a lot to unpack, Kit. So we'll do the best we can to navigate this.
Well, first of all, it is based on a book.
Yeah,
it's based on a book by James S.A. Corey, who is actually
a couple of guys.
It's a pen name for the couple of guys.
Yeah.
So they're Daniel Abraham and Ty Frank are the two writers.
They're brilliant writers.
They're incredible. Yeah. And then it's Mark Fergus and Hawk Ostby who are the ones who created it. Yes?
Mark and Hawk were the developers of the series.
Okay.
But honestly, I think the heart and soul of the show is our own Narain Shankar, a name known to Star Trek fans and a guy that's been coming to our shows for many years.
Oh, really?
He was really, I think, the de facto showrunner on it for most of its tenure and did an incredible job. So, Narain, wherever you are, this one is for you. We love you. Wow. Well, let's try and start with kind of broad views about the content of the series. Yeah. In the future, humanity has colonized our solar system, and it's created a complex multi-planetary society with 3 major power areas. There's the Earth, which is governed by the UN. There is the Mars, And then there's the Outer Planets Alliance, also known
As
loosely as the
Belters.
Belters. Right.
And these are people who have been born and raised in space.
The Belters.
Yeah, Belters. They've
And
been born and raised in space, so they know nothing about living on a planet.
Yeah, and in fact, their bodies are sort of elongated and not as muscular from the effects of being in low gravity.
Right.
So they kind of look physically strange. But the show
But not
is
on the show, really. I mean, probably in the book, they probably live
little bit, yeah. The show is set roughly 325 years in the future. We have settlements on the moon, Mars, out in the asteroid belts, and we've been doing terraforming, and there are major political tensions between the different planetary alliances and factions.
Yes, that's how we opened the show, basically.
The UN and the Martian military are vying for control and resources, and then the Belters feel very marginalized.
Which they are. They're kind of like the working class, I
Yeah.
would say, right?
And so they're kind of aggrieved, and they're fighting for independence through something called the OPA, the Outer Planets Alliance, which is going to figure very importantly in the show.
Yeah.
Now, before we kind of talk about the cast, let's just kind of look at some of the broad strokes of what's happening on this show. One of the core conceits or threads, foundations, spines of the show is an alien technology which has a profound influence on our solar system
Yes.
and the future of humanity.
Right.
So let's try and unpack the protomolecule.
Which is something Adam and I would talk about this show, and he'd always just go, the protomolecule.
I love the protomolecule.
He was all into the protomolecule. It was very
All
intense
right.
situation. Which it's actually a living thing.
Well,
Kind
not
of.
exactly. I'll try and explain
Okay,
this.
you
It's
go ahead.
close to being living, but first of all, there's a lot of spoilers in this discussion, so forgive us if you haven't seen the series. You know, I think it's worth listening to us because you'll understand the series a lot better if you have some of this context.
Yes.
There are 15
And
or
we probably won't even touch upon some
No,
of this stuff. That
but there are
happens in the
15
show.
or 20 incredible sequences throughout those 6 seasons. We're going to touch on some of the amazing sequences, but first you sort of got to wrap your head around the protomolecule. Now, the protomolecule was brought to our solar system on the moon Phoebe. And Phoebe, which is an asteroid, it's a small planetoid or moon of Saturn, was originally extrasolar system. And it was hurled into our solar system literally 1 billion years ago by the mysterious ring builders.
That's right.
And
Oh my
these
God.
ring builders were a highly advanced alien
Not to
civilization.
be confused with Tolkien's The Ring.
That's right.
Different.
Although they probably could have had the technology to build a one ring. But these ring builders, as we're going to find out, created a series of rings which are transport hubs throughout the galaxy.
Right.
And they clearly were using it as a way to travel faster than light,
Right.
sort of like a wormhole, to different parts of the galaxy quickly. And they were very, very advanced, sort of like the Krell from Forbidden Planet. But overnight, just like the Krell, they disappeared because of a mysterious unknown alien entity or entities called the aggressors. And we'll talk a little bit about the aggressors, but we know very little about them.
Yeah, we don't.
Anyway, so this protomolecule is embedded onto the moon Phoebe, hurled into our solar system from God knows where, and is captured by Saturn's orbit. And the protomolecule that's on it remains dormant until it is discovered by humans, whereupon it begins to initiate its self-replicating and matter-manipulating abilities. The
Say that
protomolecule,
5 times fast.
see, I thought it was alive, but it's not actually alive. What it is a system that can duplicate itself
Right.
and initiate control over matter, not just living matter, but non-organic matter as
Right.
well. So it has the ability to manipulate matter as well as living systems. And as I did mention, although it's a mysterious thing, the ring builders that created that were eliminated by the aggressors. Now, the protomolecule was discovered on Phoebe, and the Outer Planets Alliance, led by a wonderful character, Fred Johnson.
Yeah.
They deliver this protomolecule to Eros as an experiment.
Right.
They
And
wanna
Fred
see-
Johnson's a belter, right?
Well, Fred Johnson is,
He's the head of the OPA, basically.
but he sort of has some interplanet connections and
Right.
roots. But he does, in fact, become a part of the Outer Planets Alliance, and is involved in the stealing of a very pivotal space station on the show, which
Eros.
eventually is called the Behemoth. We'll get to that. But the Outer Planets Alliance wants to test the potential of the protomolecule on Eros.
Right.
Meanwhile, there's lots of belters that work on Eros,
Right.
mining resources,
Yes.
minerals, and stuff.
And they get infected, I suppose.
It's-
It's like a.
This is not a good thing that happens.
It
Just-
reminds me of The Last of Us, the fungus kind of
Yeah,
situation.
well, I mean, it's not good. You end up with people that have the body of a crab and the head of a social worker. It's not a good thing. Anyway, so okay, just as a side note regarding Fred Johnson and the Outer Planets Alliance, they steal a space station, which was actually the Church of Latter-day Saints, our
Right.
wonderful Mormon friends. Their station, the LDS Medina station, they grab it and it becomes the Behemoth, and they're hoping to use it to gain some kind of strategic control over the solar system. But more importantly, they want to use the protomolecule as a way to control the solar system. But little did they realize that the protomolecule was way beyond their technical
Gets
abilities.
out of their hands quickly.
And they enlist a scientific organization to work with them, but it quickly proves not to be harnessable. At one point, they're trying human proto hybrids, and those are really screwed up. You don't want to deal with invite
And
those to
that's
dinner.
kind of sort of spearheaded by the one Dr. Mao, like, right?
Yes,
Dr.
that's
Mao.
right.
Yeah, he's
And-
the one who's spearheading. Not a guy.
Do you have the name of that actor, by the way?
Jeez.
He's we've seen him in a lot of different
Yes.
shows. He's a fan favorite.
Yes.
Anyway, the protomolecule, it clearly has a sentience of its own or its own directional ability.
Yeah.
And as it overtakes the Eros station, it gets out of control. And so at the end of season 1, I mean, there's a mystery that's building. The daughter of the scientist.
Yes, Juliette Mao.
Dr. Mao's daughter.
Yeah.
She becomes infected, and Thomas Jane comes on the scene. The actor Thomas Jane, who plays a detective, who's trying to get to the mystery of what happened to her. 'Cause
Right,
she's
and Dr.
missing.
Mao was paid by Francois Chow.
Yeah, who we love. He's
Yeah.
a great actor.
Look him up; he's great.
So anyway, by the end of the first season, this protomolecule has taken over Eros Station.
Right, and we haven't gotten to. Let's get to our ragtag team.
Let me just say what happens
Oh, yeah.
at the end of the station. So there's this poor schlub who's there, right?
Yeah.
And then there's all these particles of protomolecules flying all around him, right?
Yeah.
And then they coalesce into the silhouette of a man. He's like looking at it and he says, what is this thing? And it reminded me of this Japanese sci-fi movie from the 60s called The H-Men,
Oh,
which for those of you that are 1,000 years old like me can remember that because of radiation experiments, I guess this is the Japanese, memory of Hiroshima.
right,
They did a lot of sci-fi films regarding radiation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Godzilla.
right.
After that, this is sort of like kind of a way in which through sci-fi they were trying to catharsize themselves from the understandable trauma of World War II. And these H-men, who are like these blob dudes that slide around, they can take the silhouette forms of human, and then they grab you. Anyway, so the protomolecule can create the silhouette of a man, and the guy's like looking at it. He's saying, "What is this?" And it's flicking around back and forth. The next thing you know, these big tentacles come down and they grab you, kid, and they fling them back up to the top of the Eros station, and there's some sort of big blob thing up there.
Right.
So clearly, the protomolecule has gone crazy. Okay,
And
thrust
it's
into
not
this
friendly.
thrust into this crazy protomolecule business is the ragtag team of the wonderful Rocinante.
Rocinante.
Which, by the way, is a reference to Don Quixote. I believe it's his horse from The Man of La Mancha.
Yes.
But okay, Kim, why don't you set up first of all the crew of the Rocinante?
Right. So I guess they I think originally it was another ship and they renamed it the Rocinante, but it's led by Stephen Strait, the actor who plays James Holden.
Yeah.
And he's fantastic. Very, heroic. He's very stalwart. He's a good guy. He wants to do the good thing.
Now, Stephen was in that movie 10,000 BC.
Yes, he was.
And he was fantastic in that film. For those you fan completists that remember that.
Yes.
He had a buddy, a saber-toothed tiger buddy in that movie.
That's true.
Anyway,
I think he's a kid actor. Anyway,
Yeah.
so joining him on this sort of, they've kind of all had to come together because of circumstances. We've also got Alex Kamal, played by Cas Anvar, who's great. Naomi Nagati, one of my favorite characters, played by Dominic Tripper.
Yeah.
And then Amos Burton, Wes Chatham.
The great Wes Chatham.
He's just Chatham?
Yeah.
Chatham. He is just he's like the brute. He's kind of like the muscle of the group.
Although he's actually quite
Yes.
intelligent.
And Naomi's kind of the she's a belter, so she has never been on Earth or anything like that.
She has her sympathies to their cause.
And she and James end up having a thing.
They
later in seasons.
Although
but Amos is also an Earther, and then Alex is actually a Martian.
But Naomi, as we discover towards the 5th season or so, had a child and a love affair with a very nefarious character, Marco Sinaros,
who becomes the villain the last 2 seasons.
So we'll catch up to him. But I did want to mention that, and also that it's again a multi-ethnic cast. They sort of have factions from around the solar system. So they're representing the interests of a lot of different parties.
Right. So then in the first season, we're also introduced to Joe Miller, who's sort of a detective, played by
the great Thomas Jane. Yes, yeah.
And he's the one. He's been assigned to try to find Dr. Mao's daughter, Juliette Mao.
That's right.
So that's how he ends up connecting with the Rocinante, and they end up on Euros, and that at the end of season 1.
But
now,
we
back
don't
on
want
Earth,
to forget about the wonderful head of the UN.
That's what I'm saying.
Please.
The head of the UN. How do you say? I guess it's
Christian Avasarala.
Played by the wonderful
the great Sheree Agdashlu.
Yeah, she is just an unbelievable actress. If you've ever seen a movie called The House of Sand and Fog, it's just one of the most. Anyway.
24 and 1,000 other things.
Yeah,
we adore her. We've had her and actually and several, because she was in Star Trek.
Yes.
As well as several members of Expanse cast have been at creation events and have thrilled our audiences.
Yeah, so she plays a very savvy, very politically savvy part of the UN on Earth, and she has her own agendas in many sorts, but I would say she's complicated, but she's definitely a good person in the end. But
and a foul mouth, just like me.
She does, yeah.
Right.
So she's the one kind of, orchestrating or being part of whatever this weird Cold War thing that's happening between Earth and Mars and the OPA and all of this. So she's a very integral part to that. So
meanwhile, back out on the outer edge of the solar system, the OPA, now realizing that Eros is out of control, figures, well, we might as well throw it at Earth. We'll get the Eros and we'll just send it to Earth. And then, since obviously this thing is out of control, we might as well screw up Earth because we're the Outer Planets Alliance. We might as well mess up Earth. So they send it hurtling towards Earth, and then something crazy happens.
Right.
The asteroid changes course on its own because literally the protomolecule has taken control of the drive reactors of the asteroid and then diverts it, kind of like Mao, whatever the name of that asteroid is actually that came into our solar system a couple of years ago and then changed course, which was really creepy in real life. This is sort of the same thing. It changes course.
I'm glad I didn't know about that.
Yes, and it's creepy. Some guys think it was actually, some scientists believe it actually was some kind of an alien thing, but we'll never know. But anyway, so Eros hurtles into the atmosphere of Venus, and it's gone inside of Venus. So that's a crazy thing.
Yeah, and unfortunately, in that in that crash, the Joe Miller, the detective played by Thomas Jane, is killed.
Yes, which is very
But
sad.
is he not really killed?
No, because he's sort of resurrected as a ghost.
Yeah.
And partly, I believe, because of an errant piece of proto molecule that's hidden on board the Rocinante.
Right.
Okay, so now the UN, of course, at this point knows that Eros has crashed on Venus, and they're like, well, what the heck is going on here? So they put an observation ship, the Arbogast, in orbit around Venus. And then things go crazy.
Yeah, and the proto-molecule takes over, basically.
The Arbogast disassembles
Yes.
in this incredible, I mean, it's an amazing
It was
scene.
a wonderful
It
sequence.
deconstructs into all its
Because they
nuts
try
and
to
bolts.
go into the they
Yeah,
try to go through wherever it is, and they
You know, and so like the guys that are like sitting at the control panels, all of a sudden the whole ship is deconstructed, and they're like looking around, and they're basically in the flying through the atmosphere of Venus on themselves. So it's not a good way to end.
no,
you know.
kind of reminded me of the 3-body problem with the
Yes.
nanotechnology and stuff.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
so
yes, yes.
that's scary stuff.
Anyway, so now the protomolecule is doing something crazy on Venus.
Yep.
And the next thing you know, this biomechanical mass rises from the surface of Venus and
It's all
heads
beautifully
out
done.
into the solar system. It's like 2001 on steroids. And then around
Stars.
near Neptune, it unfurls itself in this incredible manner and slowly starts to weave into this enormous ring. And so now we realize that the protomolecules' manifest destiny or purpose by the ring builders is to create these rings that the ring builders use
Yes.
to create travel portals in different parts of the galaxy.
Right.
So now you got this ring up there, and of course everybody in the solar system wants a piece of the action to figure out what this thing is, what can they do with it.
How can they get through it to it?
know.
Yeah.
Is it a real estate opportunity? I mean, is it like, can you get fast food in there? I mean, whatever, it's a good thing. All right. So do you remember the schlub, one of the first guys that wants to try and go inside of it and see
Yes.
what's going on?
Yes.
So this guy, he's like a speeder.
Yeah. And he's
He's
like,
in
I
the
can do
ship.
it. I can do it.
I can go through it. He goes super fast through the ring, and the ring has a speed limit, okay? Just like in your municipality, you should not be driving too fast. This schlub was driving too fast, kid. And
Yes,
what
he
happened to him?
He basically
great.
just disintegrates
He
as
just
well.
turns into goo, man.
Yeah.
He's like, and it's just like goo everywhere.
Everyone's like,
It's fantastic.
yeah, it was
And,
great.
and poor kid had to go in and clean the whole thing up. It was a disaster.
Just clean myself up. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really,
So
really, really
this becomes
crazy.
like a major nemesis to everything that happens for the next few seasons. And then we're introduced to some other great characters in
Yeah,
the
such
following
as,
season.
please.
I love Bobby Draper, played
Yeah.
by Frankie
Yeah.
Adams is her name.
Yeah, yeah.
She's a Martian. She's sort of a soldier from Mars, but she becomes Christian's protege. She takes her under her wing to sort of guide her along, and she's
Yeah.
super badass. And I just thought she was fantastic too. And of course, she plays into a few things here and there, but yeah, she was one of my other favorite characters.
I'm gonna guess that she's Australian or
Yes.
first
Maori,
Maori
yeah.
First Nations lady.
Yeah.
And she's fantastic.
Yeah.
We also have Cara G as Kamina Drummer,
Oh,
who is also another amazing character.
she's a belter.
Yeah.
So she comes from Naomi's world. They're
Yeah.
actually friends. So yeah, and she too is, you think she's an ally of the OPA, or what ends up becoming Marcos? What's his name? Marcos Inaros. Yeah, who
But-
wants to just basically take over everything. He's super pissed off. He's got the hugest chip on his shoulder and a grudge. And
But we should get to the roots of that.
Yeah.
So before he comes along, we meet the great David Strathairn.
Strathairn, yeah.
Strathairn.
Yeah.
I love him.
It's a hard name.
He plays a belter pirate named Clace Ashford, and he's this larger-than-life character.
Yeah.
He's super fantastic. And he becomes first officer on the Behemoth.
Right.
So he's working for the Outer Planet Alliance, and he gets on very well there. Well, then we discovered that there is also another political entity called the Free Navy.
Yes.
And the Free Navy has been founded by Philippe Inaros.
Right.
And Philippe has got a son who is out of control named Marco.
And he's played by Keon Alexander.
Yeah, who is fantastic.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
So anyway,
he's not a great character, but he's a great actor.
The OPA has got Marco trapped. They've got him under, in their lockup.
Yeah.
And then somehow or another, he worms his way out of that. They decide not to kill him. Fatal mistake.
Fatal mistake.
You
David Strathairn decides not to kill him.
Such a stupid move, because soon enough, he turns the tables on him, and now
that's a horrible.
Ashford, Strathairn's character, is now inside of an airlock and gets spaced in an epic spacing scene while he's like singing a Scottish anthem or something. Yeah. And he just
goes out in style, let's just say that.
I mean, oh my God, it's so incredible. But at this point now, it's so obvious that this guy, Marco Inaros, he's completely out of control and completely unredeemable.
Yeah, and he's a megalomaniac.
And we discovered that he also was Naomi's
former love. And they have had a son. Yeah.
So they have this whole thing between them, and he wants her to come back, of course, but that's never going to happen.
No.
Anyway, so Inaros and the Free Navy, of course, want to
take over this ring
thing. And decimate, not only take over the ring, but decimate the solar system. Yep. And takes revenge for, again, how they feel that the colonial Earth and even Mars factions sort of ruined the solar system and created a race of disenfranchised belters and such.
Yes.
And so he decides he's going to take vengeance on Earth, and he's going to do it with these humongous asteroids that he gets.
Yes, and Dragon.
And he fits them with the stealth technology, so he can throw them at Earth without Earth knowing that they're coming. Because Earth is ostensibly got some defenses.
Right.
But he has a stealth technology, so you don't see him coming. And he is successful in, one in particular that just has a global impact. And almost as bad as the dinosaurs, right? Or the time the creation got evicted from one of our previous locations. I jest, of course, but it's terrible. It's
terrible. Thousands of millions of people died.
Millions of people died. Yeah,
including Christian's husband, I think, is that or something like that. Yeah. So anyway, it's not a good thing, and he's able to get that off, but. This proto-model could kill whoever's guiding it from the ring bearers or the aggressors. But what do the aggressors say?
Well, we're getting towards the end of the sixth season, and we will talk about that. But first, there's a number of places. They go to some places inside of the ring. There are actually portals to different parts of the galaxy, and so they start to go through some of these different portals.
And for whatever reason, obviously, that's why I say they're not really living, but they are intuitive. So Stephen Straight's character, so James Holden, he's accepted basically. So he's allowed into they don't destroy him when he goes into the ring.
Well, what is the reason for that? Does he have like a piece of proto-molecule that's affected
or something, or they just know he's not? I mean, that's basically it.
He's connected psychically with them.
With Thomas Jane, and who's already in there, and that kind of thing. So Joe Miller's already in there. So
he's able to go. He's
the only one in there. Yeah, he's the only one.
And if you go slow enough, they will allow you in there. And so there is a group of them that go through to a planet.
Right.
And they have a series of sequences, and I want to say the 5th or 6th seasons on this planet with some experiences that planet also had been terraformed by the ring builders, and there's some ring latent or inactive
ancient
ring builder technology on
Right.
the planet that is activated,
right.
and it almost threatens to.
Because when it's activated, then it becomes, well, why should we let humanity live? Obviously, all they want to do is
Yeah.
kill each other. It was one of those kind of situations that get set up, and so I guess it's whoever it is, the aggressors or whoever. They're like, we're gonna just annihilate everybody because why? We'll just start over, basically.
But I guess they're able to turn that technology off so
Yeah.
that they're not killed. And there's also another storyline which is from some of the later books, because there are how many books in the
I don't know how.
there are several books in the Expanse series, the Ring series. There are these creepy dog creatures.
Oh, yes.
And you never really quite find out from and I'm not familiar with the book continuity, but from the show continuity, they can kind of bring you back to life, sort of. So the colonists have a kid who dies.
Right.
Well, first we find a bird that's brought back to life.
This is in season 6, so it's sort of setting up for what will be in the future. Obviously, they didn't.
Spin-off.
They didn't continue the series, but
Yeah.
it would have been a spin-off of some sort where this young girl is resurrected or her brother's resurrected.
Yeah.
And then,
And in fact, this boy is resurrected, but he's definitely weird. I think his blood is like black, and
it's not quite like Pet Cemetery. Okay, so he's not out to kill everybody.
No, but he's definitely
not the same.
weird.
Yes.
He's definitely weird.
Yeah.
Whenever they bring you back, you're never the same. We have some employees here at Creation. Once they actually work at Creation, they're never the same again.
Oh,
But so
in a good way.
So that's creepy.
Yes.
And we never really find out the full intent of these alien dogs.
Yeah.
But clearly,
so it kind of leaves a little bit of a cliffhanging. But so anyway, so we know Marcos eventually is defeated, and he's
what happens is they're coming down to the kind of the
right.
finale,
Yeah.
And we think that he's actually going towards Earth,
right,
to try and do an end play and destroy the Earth with the Rocinante in
Yes.
fast pursuit, but he is able to get to Earth before them.
Yeah.
And just when all is lost, all of a sudden, it's the galactic eraser. Once again, the aggressors, they just kind of go.
They realize Marco's no good.
Yeah.
He's
so
really the one causing all the trouble.
This happened, by the way, once earlier in the series. We saw an example of their work where all of a sudden, the matter just comes to a standstill, and you see it's like an eraser.
Yeah.
This is sort of like when our teachers in grade school wanted to erase us, or get stuff off the blackboard. They would go like that. It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then so Marcos's ship is frozen. You see the aggressors are there back again. He's gone.
He's done.
Which is good.
I do want to, so that's basically in a nutshell. Yeah, lots to unpack, lots, but it's really worth the ride, and you definitely want to, pay attention and whatnot. You may have to rewatch some stuff here and there, and there's some parts of some seasons that were a little better than other seasons.
And we've probably gotten a couple things wrong.
But yes. But I want to talk about the another scene that I thought was so fantastic.
Yeah.
Was Naomi Nagati. She is the mother of this young son, and Marcos is trying to turn her son into, basically into another bad guy or his protege or whatever.
Yeah.
And so she feels really bad about abandoning him. There's all that kind of those family issues going on. But she is going to be killed, I guess, or something, and she decides she's going to try to jump out into space to get to this rogue ship, right?
She has to literally jump from one ship to another ship through the vacuum of space.
And lives.
I mean, barely.
It is one of the most amazing
Barely.
sequences I've ever seen.
Incredible.
Because she's just floating through space, she's starting to freeze and everything, and is she gonna make it? In fact, I think on one of the posters there's somebody jumping like that. I think that's probably her.
I mean,
it was unbelievable, that sequence.
Kid, I've seen people here in the studio. The air conditioning is so bad; it's been practically as bad as that.
And she's been separated from James and everything for all this time, and
right.
so it's them trying to finally getting back together again, and just my God,
it's an amazing.
So not
sequence.
only is it so deep and so rich in sci-fi lore and how he builds these universes, there's also always, which always makes a show good, is the human touch. The heart.
the
And I would say
characters.
James and Naomi are definitely one of the hearts of the show.
And
you know?
I
And
couldn't agree
that
more.
whole
than-
how do you say it?
Rocinante.
Rocinante crew,
Yeah.
they're the heart of the show.
And the character development, the character arcs over the course of the sixth
Yeah.
season are incredible.
Yeah.
And part of what makes the show so compelling, but set against this galactic backdrop, such a high concept science fiction thing.
And it's taking from things we've already seen before, but it's just the way. I think for me, I personally loved the three different factions: the ones who have never lived on any planet, the Belters, Earth, and the Mars. I just think that kind of setup is just brilliant.
I think it's going to happen. If you think about it,
Yeah.
I know they're going to be plundering our solar system,
Yeah.
and then
And people will be just living in space their whole lives.
I mean, our human society is a caste system.
Yeah.
So you got to. It goes to figure it's going to happen out in space too.
Definitely, we're going to colonize Mars. I absolutely feel that is going to
Well,
happen.
that's if Elon Musk has anything to say about it, it's going to be in the next couple of years.
I know.
So
So anyway, yeah, definitely check it out if you're a hardcore sci-fi fan. Even if you're not, or you're like sort of on the fence about it, it's still a really great show.
yeah, it's fantastic. We highly recommend it, and we're hoping we're going to see some spin-offs. And thanks for bearing with us. This is a heavy thing to unpack, but really, really worth
Yeah,
your
He knows his
investigation.
stuff,
So
man.
do watch. She does too. Go and watch The Expanse as soon as you can, and we hope you enjoyed it as much
Yeah.
as we did.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, kid.
Yep, thanks.
Hi, everybody. So today, I want to discuss some of the really important and meaningful professional relationships we've had over the past 50 years and how they impacted our company and also us personally. So I was thinking about the most important people that really jump-started our career along the way, and one of them was William Shatner. And I know we briefly talked about it, but I don't know if you remember when we first got into Star Trek conventions, Bill really was not doing them that much, and it had been a long time. And I remember we had to convince him to do it, and it was in LA, and it went really well. And since that time, I know you especially have had like a really good many decades relationship with him, and I feel that he was like one of the first huge stars that actually embraced what we were doing, and that was forward thinking at the time, and I think it really helped us. So I wanted your input on that.
Yeah. Well, we met Bill through the William Shatner fan club,
Right.
and we knew the ladies associated with that, and of course we've been huge fans of Bill's, since Star Trek and throughout the rest of his career. But we had him in, I want to say, 1985 at the Hyatt Regency Los Angeles
Right,
Airport.
yeah.
And he was fantastic. And I mean, he just, right from the very beginning, he was wonderful. And we hit it off so well with him that began a 4-decade relationship with the guy. We're celebrating our 40th year
Yeah,
of shows
crazy.
with him. And I think where we really got kind of close to him was on the 25th anniversary.
Yeah.
We had just the year before done the 25th anniversary event at the Shrine, but the following spring we did a 10-city tour with him and Leonard,
Yeah, I remember that.
which we took all over North America, and that was a chance for us to really get to know Bill and Leonard, but them together, and particularly Bill. And what impressed me about him was that he didn't take himself too seriously. I mean, this is a guy with world fame,
Yeah.
and acclaimed, but he was definitely not full of himself. And I think again he was self-effacing, and but smart as a whip.
Yeah, the smartness thing was really cool to see.
I mean, really a smart guy, beautifully well spoken, very entertaining and animated. He'd get up on stage and he would do one of his famous rants.
Yeah.
But always with a kind of a purpose. And he was very, very good to us, to our whole team. Privately, he was always really, really kind to us. So I remember a highlight of that was because you and I, growing up on Long Island, used to go to Nassau Coliseum.
Yeah, that was a nice event. I know what you're talking about.
And then we booked the Nassau Coliseum, and we had 10,000 people there. We filled the Nassau Coliseum. It was unbelievable,
Yeah, that was like our biggest thing, at least at that point.
with those guys, yeah. So, and then like we would like Bill would like want to do multiple shows in one weekend.
Right. Leonard was not into it as much, was he?
He was okay with it. It was Bill who really wanted to do as much as he could. So I know on one weekend we started in Sacramento and ended up in Minneapolis, and I would travel with those guys.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And they were, they were
How did they act?
great friends.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. How did
Yeah.
they act? Because you're one of the few people who actually saw them together a lot.
Yeah.
How did they interact when they were together?
They loved each other. I think towards the very end of Leonard's life, there was a misunderstanding between them that upset Leonard. It was unintentional on Bill's part. So at the very end there, Leonard was very sick, and I think that there was an issue about filming a sequence on stage
Yes, correct.
that had upset Leonard, but it was really unintentional on Bill's part, and Bill loved Leonard very much, and I know Leonard loved Bill just as much.
Didn't you try to fix that at the end there?
I spoke to Leonard about it, and he was very, very ill at that point. I don't think he was really, on his game to really be thinking about that too much. But I know when all is said and done, those guys really loved each other. They were great together. In private, they were fantastic. They had a kind of a legendary back and forth on stage where they would
Make fun of each other.
make fun of each other, and it was all very very in good spirits, and they were a pleasure together. After that, of course, we got involved with the Hollywood Charity Horse Show. Now, Bill's been doing that charity for like 30 years. And we still work with them, but for about 25 years, I worked very actively with the charity on site at the show until very recently when I moved out of LA. But we still do have this event every year at the Los Angeles Equestrian Center in Burbank. We've had a lot of very famous personalities, all of whom come to the event because of Bill.
Right.
And I'll just spit off a couple of funny things from the horse shows. Leonard Nimoy doing team penning. Nimoy on a horse trying to corral sheep into the corner of the arena.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Which is funny. He did. He had this thing where they had like a crime boss drive into the arena in like this big 1940s sedan.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would get famous people to kind of participate in those scenes, those scenarios in the arena. Famous performers that would be at the horse show, like let's say Brad Paisley,
Willie Nelson.
Willie Nelson. I had that funny experience with Willie that one time.
What was that?
Well,
you didn't party with him, did you?
I didn't know. I don't smoke pot, but Willie. I had to bring something to Willie's green room. And then when I went there and I go, Mr. Nelson, I have this thing for you. He said, come on in. The door opens and this big cloud of pot smoke comes out. Yeah,
so it's true. Yeah.
No, it was really funny.
He was pretty entertaining that night.
Yeah, and some lesser known people, but a procession of personalities, all of whom, revere Bill and help Bill raise, at this point, about $10 million for various LA kids charities.
Great.
And then also, of course, Bill's love of the equestrian arts that sort of kind of fed into that. And even Bill is still at the age of 94, still riding today. I told him he's a lunatic and he should get off the horse already. He says, nah, I'm going to ride off into the sunset. I
love the fact that when he was like 93, he finished an engagement with us and he asked you if you had any more work for him. I mean, come on. That's like quite inspirational.
He is an inspirational guy. He's been a dear friend to us at Creation. We owe him so much.
Yeah.
And very, very grateful to have all this wonderful time with him.
So was I. Yeah. And I want to bring up one more person. It involves the X-Files property. Because that was like a kind of a mixed blessing, working with Chris Carter in 1013 at the time.
Yeah.
But that also was a big deal for us because we got involved with X-Files early on, where the conventions drove a lot of the publicity that the series got,
Yeah.
that TV got, and at the time weekly stories. So that propelled us into dealing with a lot of other cool properties.
Yeah.
But maybe it wasn't as pleasurable an experience, at least for me,
Yeah.
dealing with the business side of it. What about for you on the creative side?
It wasn't that pleasant. Chris Carter was a micromanager who made it difficult for us to present productions the way we wanted to. He wanted to oversee every aspect of what we were doing, and he had some good ideas and he had some bad ideas, and I think it kind of encumbered us quite a bit. Also, I wasn't too happy about the fact, although it worked out well for her, that his team pilfered one of our staff members to go on and work for them. Although she ended up becoming a showrunner on her own, which was fantastic. I'm happy for her career, but it really wasn't that cool that they kind of sacked her from us.
Yes, I agree. I believe that the thing that they did wrong was not telling us that they were going to do that
Yeah,
advance. That's like kind of a sleazy thing.
Not that that hasn't happened, to various people many times in the past, but
well, I think our career progressed since that time. Where now, when we're working with other show creators and showrunners, they understand that we know our business better than they're going to know because we don't know their business better, and we don't have those Chris Carterish problems as much anymore.
No, we don't. But I think something that you mentioned is important. What we discovered is that our events, and by bringing a fandom for a property together, really can affect the longevity of a property.
Yeah.
I mean, the Supernatural is the perfect case study. Supernatural might have gone off the air in 7 years or 8 years. It went 15 years, and a lot of that had to do with our live events kind of continually feeding the fandom.
Yeah.
And also, I give a lot of credit to Jared and Jensen and Misha, who top-lined our events and had the vision to recognize how important it was to have that one-on-one dialogue with the fan community and to support them and love them as the fan community did to them. Really helped, I think, to propel Supernatural into the incredible longevity that it has as a series.
Yeah, those guys recognized the fact, and the conventions also gave a reason for the fandom to keep going in between. So, man, the whole Supernatural family got huge and helpful to a lot of the people. It's really a loving community, much like all of them have been. They each are different, like Star Trek and Xena fans and X-Files fans. But
now, one last thing before I let you go. I've been meaning to ask you for a while because you're Creation's resident comedy expert. What a gas it was running the TV Land convention, Gary.
Yeah, that was pretty special.
Who were some of the people that we had at TV Land that you really enjoyed working with?
I did a panel, one of the few that I hosted, with supporting actors on situation comedies.
Yeah.
And I remember Rosemary was on it. And
Rosemary, I love her.
Well,
Dick,
you were there.
Yeah, no, Dick Van Dyke Show.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And Bernie Coppell was on it.
Bernie Coppell, that's Love Boat? Or?
Love Boat.
Yeah.
And then the guy who played Ebb on Green Acres.
Right,
I
right.
don't remember his name. And there were a few other people, so I was given a half hour for the panel.
Oh, fun.
So my first question was, why are your shows so successful? And I opened it up with Rosemary. She spoke for a half hour.
Wow.
And I had 4 other people on the panel.
That's so funny.
I know, so that was a pretty good panel. But Carl Reiner was there.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
the master.
Yeah. That was great. And Larry Hagman.
Larry Hagman was there. He was fantastic. We had Sherman Hemsley.
We did have Sherman Hemsley, who wanted his money in cash.
Sounds like Stan Lee.
Yeah, except that one of them had tax problems.
Oh, I see.
And it wasn't Stan.
I see. Who else did we have at that show? Some interesting people.
The girl who played Tabitha.
Right. Was Dawn
Erin Murphy.
Wells at that show? I know we've worked with Dawn.
Yeah, we did work with Dawn. I don't know if I don't know.
Oh, and we had, of course, George Schlatter and Ruth Buzzy and
Dick
Martin, which was incredible.
And Joanne Worley, did you say?
Joanne Worley and Ruth Buzzy.
And the announcer.
And Gary Owens.
Gary.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, we were, I think I speak for both of us, huge fans of Laugh-In.
Yeah.
That really hit the zeitgeist of America at the time.
Yeah. Trying to think who. Marla Gibbs was at that show.
Marla Gibbs, right.
It was like walking into an old TV series. All these
I mean,
people.
so incredible, and so many icons of television comedy.
Yeah, well, I'm noticing that a lot of those type of people, maybe not at that level, are appearing at the Hollywood show now. So fans do get to meet. I mean, they're
Yeah.
and I know we're friendly with those
Yeah.
guys. There, people are getting to meet like, you know, Priscilla Presley.
Yeah,
I mean, they're bringing
they
in
do
some.
a great job
They
at that
do
show.
a nice job,
Yeah.
and they had Anne Margaret.
That
It's
we're
like really
trying to
good.
get those guys lined up to maybe appear at our Vegas show.
Yeah, I know you're working on that.
Yeah.
That would be so much fun.
I know.
Because a lot of those stars are in the era of fame when a lot of Star Trek fans were watching Star Trek, the
Yeah.
older ones.
Right.
Yeah. Very cool. I hope we get to work with them.
So crazy moving creation out to LA all those years ago and getting to just be a part of the entertainment community meant so much to both of us.
Yeah, it was a good move. I'm glad we did it.
Yeah. All right, love you.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Hi there, everybody. It is time for your favorite segment, Gary Berman on Business, or Business Advice, starring Gary Berman.
Thank you.
All right. We have a really important question for you today, Gary. This is going to help a lot of people, I think. And the question is, what was your biggest mistake as a boss?
Other than this podcast,
Yes, second biggest mistake. Sorry.
not understanding that people can really be messed up when you're dealing with them. I'm talking mainly business relationships and employees and stuff. And when I started, we were hiring a lot of fans and stuff, which made sense because they were our friends, and they did a great job, especially in the early years of our business. But I later came to learn that people can have, like we all have issues. People can have some severe disorders that affect the way they do business and their relationships. And, that happened to me 3 times with long-time employees, like really long time.
Mhm.
And Adam did too, because, we try to be nice. We just kept trying to come up with explanations as to why these people were this way. And we had to modify our behavior to accommodate their misbehaviors. And so the mistake is keeping the status quo, maybe because it's easier, and suffering as a boss, both personally and business wise. Because, an entrepreneur is going to take their business home after hours. And, when you're involved with an employee mess, you take that home because, if you have a company of 20 employees, you know them all very well. So that's been the most difficult. I think, for me, becoming friendly with employees was important, but, they say you shouldn't do that. But that does make it harder if things go wrong. So you got to be really careful when you make those decisions, but mainly knowing that, if something's going to be bad, you got to get rid of it instead of sticking with it. Because, in my
Mhm.
case, we're talking 25 years in certain cases of just accepting really bad behavior. And, they represent you to the outside world in many cases.
Yeah.
So, you want to be represented the way you try to do business or the way Adam would, and that was not the case. So I guess rolling over, and a lot of times these people have very forceful personalities, manipulative in a certain way too. So it makes it difficult, but this is just about a very small percentage overall. Uh, so many people who work for us went on to really nice other stuff, and the people who stayed, a lot of them are fantastic. And we've had really good employees over the years, but there are a few standouts that I want to protect other new entrepreneurs from making the same mistakes I did. So, you can tell within 2-3 weeks whether an employee is going to work out or not. It doesn't have to take 25 years of excuses.
Well, yeah, helping out new entrepreneurs. I know you personally, you are very friendly and you are very compassionate and you do take your work home with you.
Thank you.
But at the same time, you do have to protect the company because if the company suffers, all the employees in it suffer as well. And so does the product and so do the fans. So giving that advice to new entrepreneurs, how do you juggle compassion and caring about the employees and practing your business and your brand?
Well, I'm like the shittiest person to ask for this because I didn't handle it well, which is why I'm telling you. If I handled it well, it wouldn't have been a subject. It's tough. I mean, I don't think you really can do it perfectly. But my best friends are people who work in the company. Literally the best friends ever. So um, the rewards might outweigh the bad shit from it. But yeah, you can't get it perfect. Yeah. I mean, the best advice probably is don't become friendly with employees, but that would my life would have been
And you
worse.
don't take your own advice.
No, I know because especially nowadays, it's like easier to make friends, and because business has become so busy for everybody that you don't have much other opportunities. So, and then you also share a common thing to discuss. So yeah, that's only one thing that I wanted to talk to you about today. The other kind of thing which is interesting and fits in is whether you, as a new company, you should have some HR person,
Mhm.
human resources, and and I don't think we've discussed this yet, but all those years. 45, 50. We never had that only because, we had, again, like 20 employees. So you think you wouldn't need it, but have it now and greatest thing ever. So it's worth the money.
Why is it the greatest thing ever? Because I'll admit, I thought the same thing. I thought an HR department or an HR person is for like these giant companies,
Yeah,
and
that's what I
creation
thought.
is a small business. It really is. It might not seem like it when you see the giant scope of the conventions that we put on, but like it's a small business. So what what's so great about having an HR department, even if you are a small business?
Oh my God. Yeah. You eliminate every unpleasant thing that gets directly to you when you don't have it. Because everyone's going to complain to the boss. Especially, in my case where I'm the one that's in the office. Because Adam's working remotely. So I get a lot of the complaints that would normally go to HR, legitimate ones, but also, all the horrible issues that may come up. I had to deal with them, and they're personality driven, a lot of them. So, you almost really have to be trained. I see how it's going now, and I see the kind of the way it's being handled. I mean, it's so super professional, and you really kind of need it because and another thing is you just don't know who's gonna go off and come up with some ridiculous reason, to sue, and you just got to protect yourself. So HR really helps that. Um, so it's bad that we have to talk about these things, but clearly we do. There's so many people who don't want to come up with anything original. They just want to rip other people off. So you know,
Sounds like
got
you wish you had gotten an HR department much sooner.
I think that should have been like the first thing. Well, first thing was a lawyer. We should have a good lawyer and a good CPA accountant. And as soon as you can, HR. But those online HR things, I didn't find those to be of any use. They're super complicated to
Mm.
manipulate and work, and they don't really do HR services. And you can't really do that online. So. I stayed away from that because we wasted money trying it. But it's all economics. When you can afford it, I would suggest there may be like a part-time HR situation where the person comes once a month or as needed. That's doable, and that's probably what we should have done earlier on when we might not be able to afford a full-time employee to do it. But
That sounds great.
yeah, yeah. I think I covered everything for today that I wanted to talk about. Maybe was there something that oh yes, the importance of knowing history.
Okay.
Uh, okay, so we've been talking about like old time comedians and stuff, and Mark Altman, and you kind of made fun of me on that, but podcasts are generally now like radio was, right? It's basically radio,
I think
other
so. Yeah.
yeah. So you guys are broadcasters. So you should know the history of that meeting. So like Jack Benny was like the biggest radio star in the country for like forever. I don't know, and he had a style. These things are important to know if you're in a business, to know the history. So I hope you don't mind if we talk about some of that stuff.
Not at all. I think it's great. In fact, doing a little bit of podcasting on my own, I know it's not about that, but I did model a little bit of what I do off of two broadcasters. One is Conan O'Brien, and the other is an AM sports radio guy I listened to while I was growing up. His name was Gary Radnich in the San Francisco Bay Area. But I agree with you. I think that's really important. Because just because it's a different medium doesn't mean you're not basically doing the same job.
Yeah, I think it's kind of crazy that radio has this huge comeback, especially with younger people. It's and you're really good at it. So I'm glad you kind of modeled it on people. But when I told you, you remind me of Steve Allen, and you didn't know that was a compliment. You should.
But it turns out it was a huge compliment, and now I really appreciate it because I looked him up.
Yeah, genius. I did get to meet him. I told you, and you know, his wife was very famous too, Jane Meadows Allen. You know, and I was a big fan of her too. And I saw them at a party, so I went over and I said to Steve Allen, you know, can I just tell you you're the best ever? And he said, you can always tell me that. And I completely ignored Jane Meadows. Like I didn't even like say hello or anything because I was so like, Steve Allen's there. So that was great. Yeah. All right, Ryan. Thanks for your time, and we will meet again next time.
All right, everybody, stick around. We've got another segment for you coming up.
Wow, Dean Devlin. I just think he's such a interesting person to listen to, and all the stories and all the things he's done, right?
Oh, yeah. And I'm a Gary and Adam fanboy, let me tell you. I love that stuff. However, we've got some important business to discuss right now. May is here. What do we have on the slate for May?
On May 16th through the 18th, we've got the Creation Supernatural Convention coming up in New Jersey at the Meadowlands Expo Center.
Those supernatural conventions are always awesome.
It's going to be a fantastic lineup. We've got Jensen, Jared, Misha, and just a great crew of guests.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
I think that's it for us this week, right?
It is it.
We want to thank you all for joining us this week. We hope you had as great of a time watching this and listening to this as we did recording it, because it was awesome.
Yes, and make sure to leave any comments and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed to the channel so you can keep up to date on all our great podcasts coming up.
We'll see you out there.
Bye.